I should have known something was wrong the moment Vanessa's face lit up at the dinner table. My sister-in-law never shows genuine enthusiasm unless she's about to go for someone's throat. My name is Harper, and until last night, I thought I had finally reached a point where I could sit through a family dinner without feeling like my heart was being ripped out. It's been 14 months since we lost Oliver, my 8-year-old son, and while the pain never really goes away, I'd learned to carry it differently. I've been thinking, Vanessa announced, swirling her wine glass with perfectly manicured fingers, about Oliver's college fund. The table went silent. My husband Ethan's fork froze halfway to his mouth. Even his parents, Charles and Linda, stopped eating their roast beef to stare at Vanessa. Since Alex is heading to college next year, she continued, her voice dripping with what she probably thought was compassion. And the money is just sitting there? I felt the room tilt sideways. The college fund. Oliver's college fund. The one we'd started the day he was born. The one that still had his crayon-drawn Harvard application stuck to its folder. The one I couldn't bring myself to close because it felt like admitting he'd never need it. Vanessa, Ethan warned, his hand finding mine under the table. I'm just being practical, she pressed on, ignoring the warning signs. Alex has his heart set on Yale, and with Greg's music career being what it is. She shot an accusatory glance at her husband, who suddenly seemed very interested in his mashed potatoes. Linda cleared her throat. Perhaps this isn't the best time. When is the best time? Vanessa's voice took on that familiar edge, the one that always preceded her most devastating blows. It's been over a year. We need to be realistic about these things. I stood up so quickly my chair scraped against the hardwood floor. Excuse me, I managed to say, though my throat felt like it was closing up. I need some air. The back porch had always been my sanctuary in the Winslow family home. It's where I used to sit with Oliver during these weekly dinners, making up stories about the constellations. He'd always insisted that the Big Dipper was actually a giant robot arm reaching down to scoop up star soup. The door creaked open behind me. Harper. It was Ethan. I'm so sorry. I had no idea she would. Don't. I wrapped my arms around myself, fighting against the autumn chill. Just don't make excuses for her. Not this time. He stepped closer, and I could feel his internal struggle, the architect in him always trying to fix things, to make broken pieces fit together again. She's not thinking clearly. With Alex's college applications and their financial situation, our son's memory isn't her personal piggy bank, I snapped, finally turning to face him. In the dim porch light, I could see the pain in his eyes matching my own. And you know what makes it worse? She's not even doing this for Alex. She's doing it because she can't stand that we had something she couldn't touch. Inside, I could hear Vanessa's voice rising, probably defending herself to Linda and Charles. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of Greg slipping out the front door, likely heading for his usual cigarette escape. I want to leave, I said quietly. Now. Ethan nodded, but before we could move, Vanessa's voice carried through the open window. It's not healthy, the way they're holding on to everything. Oliver wouldn't have wanted. Something snapped inside me. The grief I'd been carefully managing for 14 months transformed into something else entirely. Something darker. Something that whispered that maybe it was time Vanessa learned what it felt like to lose something precious. I turned to Ethan, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. Your sister just made a terrible mistake. He must have seen something change in my expression because he took a step back. Harper. But I was already walking back inside, my mind racing with possibilities. Vanessa had always been so proud of her perfect life, her perfect image. Perhaps it was time someone showed everyone what lay beneath that carefully constructed facade. After all, she'd just given me permission to be practical about family matters. The morning after the dinner disaster, I found myself sitting in my classroom, staring at 30 blank journals I'd bought for my creative writing students. Usually, these empty pages filled me with possibility. Today, they just reminded me of all the stories Oliver would never write. My phone buzzed. Another message from Ethan. Mom wants to host a makeup dinner this weekend. Says we need to clear the air. I switched off my phone without responding. Clear the air? The air was perfectly clear. Vanessa had shown exactly who she was, and no amount of Linda's famous pot roast was going to fix that. A knock at my classroom door startled me. Greg, of all people, stood there, looking as out of place in a high school as his vintage band t-shirt suggested. "Harper?"
Got a minute?
I gestured to an empty student desk, watching as he folded his lanky frame into it. Greg had always been the family outlier, the struggling musician who'd somehow caught the attention of status-obsessed Vanessa. "Look," he started, running a hand through his graying hair. "About last night. If Vanessa sent you, she doesn't know I'm here." He shifted uncomfortably. "Actually, she doesn't know a lot of things these days." Something in his tone made me pause. "What do you mean?" "The Yale thing." Greg leaned forward, lowering his voice. "It's not just about Alex's future. Vanessa's been, well, let's just say her real estate commission checks aren't matching the lifestyle she's broadcasting on social media." The revelation hit me like a splash of cold water. She's in financial trouble? Remember that luxury condo listing she was bragging about last month? It fell through. Third big deal this year to collapse. He glanced at the door, as if expecting Vanessa to materialize. But she already put down deposits on Alex's prep courses, college consultants, the works. Using money we don't have. I thought about Vanessa's designer outfits, her new car, the lavish Sweet 16 party she was planning for Alex, all while eyeing Oliver's college fund like a vulture. "Why are you telling me this?" Greg's face darkened. "Because last night wasn't about helping Alex. It was about saving face. And I'm tired of watching her tear people down to build herself up." Before I could respond, my phone lit up with a text from Linda. "Family meeting. Tonight. Non-negotiable." Greg spotted the message and winced. "Good luck with that. I'd come for moral support, but I've got a gig." "How convenient," I muttered. "Hey." He stood up, adjusting his leather jacket. "Just remember something. Vanessa's never gotten over the fact that you got the good brother." The family meeting was exactly as excruciating as I'd expected. Linda had arranged everyone in the living room like pieces on a chessboard, Vanessa and I on opposite couches, Ethan between us, Charles in his armchair playing referee. "We're family," Linda insisted, passing around coffee nobody wanted. "We need to work through this." Vanessa dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "I only meant to help. Harper's always been so sensitive." Sensitive. The word shot out before I could stop it. "You tried to raid my dead son's college fund." "That's not fair," Vanessa protested. "Alex is family too. Oliver would have wanted." "Don't." My voice came out sharp enough to crack glass. "Don't you dare tell me what my son would have wanted." Ethan reached for my hand, but I pulled away. The movement caught Vanessa's eye, and something shifted in her expression, a flash of satisfaction at the distance between us. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about money. Vanessa wasn't just trying to solve her financial problems. She was trying to prove something. To drive a wedge between Ethan and me. To show everyone that perfect Harper wasn't so perfect after all. "You know what?" I stood up, surprising everyone, including myself. "You're right, Linda. We are family. And family should know everything about each other. Every secret. Every lie. Every hidden truth." Vanessa's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" I smiled, thinking of Greg's visit. "Why don't we start with your real estate business, Vanessa? I hear things aren't quite as successful as you've been claiming." The room went silent. In that moment, looking at Vanessa's stricken face, I realized something else. This wasn't going to end with just one family meeting. This was war. "You need to see this." Melissa slid her laptop across the coffee shop table, her lawyer face firmly in place. I'd known her since college, and that expression usually preceded bad news. The screen showed a series of bank statements. Not mine, Vanessa's. "How did you?" "Greg came to my office yesterday," Melissa cut in, stirring her untouched latte. "He's thinking about divorce. Wanted to know his options. These records are interesting." I scrolled through the transactions, each one making my stomach twist tighter. Designer clothes, spa treatments, expensive restaurants. But what caught my eye were the regular transfers to an account labeled Alex's Future. "That's their college fund," I murmured. "Was their college fund?" Melissa tapped the screen. "Look at the withdrawals." The numbers told a story that made me feel sick. Vanessa hadn't just been dipping into Alex's college fund, she'd nearly drained it. All while eyeing Oliver's money like it was her personal backup plan. "There's more," Melissa said quietly. "Remember that charity fundraiser she organized last spring? The one for children's cancer research?" My head snapped up. "The one she dedicated to Oliver?" Melissa's silence was answer enough. I remembered how Vanessa had stood at the podium, tears in her eyes, talking about her beloved nephew and the importance of supporting pediatric cancer research. The event had raised over $50,000. "The charity never received the full amount," Melissa said. "Only about $10,000 made it to the foundation. The rest disappeared into Vanessa's accounts." I finished feeling numb. My phone buzzed, Ethan asking where I was. We were supposed to meet his parents for lunch. I ignored it. "Harper." Melissa reached across the table, closing the laptop. "What are you going to do with this information?" Before I could answer, someone called my name. I looked up to see Alex, Vanessa's son, approaching our table. At 16, he was all gangly limbs and uncertain smiles, so different from his mother's calculated perfection. "Aunt Harper? Mom said you weren't feeling well, but I saw you through the window." He shifted awkwardly. "I actually wanted to talk to you about something." Melissa gathered her things, squeezing my shoulder as she left. Alex took her seat, fiddling with a paper napkin. "It's about the college fund thing," he said finally. "Mom keeps talking about Yale, but I don't want to go there." I blinked. "You don't?" "I want to study music production. Maybe go to Berkeley." He smiled slightly. "Like Dad. Mom says it's a waste of money, that I need a real degree from a real school." But it's your life," I finished softly, thinking of Oliver's crayon-drawn Harvard application. He'd wanted to be an astronaut that week. "Yeah." Alex looked down. "I found some paperwork in Mom's office about my college fund. There's hardly anything left, is there?" The hurt in his voice made my chest ache. "Alex, it's okay. I kind of knew. The way she's been acting, the fights with Dad." He straightened up suddenly. "That's why I wanted to talk to you. Could you maybe not tell anyone about Yale? Mom's already stressed about money, and if people found out..." I stared at him. This kid trying to protect the mother who'd betrayed him. The mother who'd used my dead son's memory to cover up her own lies. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Linda. "Where are you?" "Vanessa has big news to share." Something cold settled in my stomach. I could picture it already. Vanessa announcing Alex's acceptance to Yale, using it to distract from her financial troubles, pushing her son into a life he didn't want just to maintain her perfect image. "I have to go," I told Alex, standing up. "But we'll talk more about this, okay?" He nodded, relief evident on his face. As I walked out, I made a decision. This wasn't just about Oliver anymore, or even about me. It was about stopping Vanessa before she destroyed more lives with her lies. I pulled out my phone and called Ethan. "We need to talk," I said when he answered. "About your sister. And this time, you're going to have to choose a side." The box of Oliver's things sat untouched in our bedroom closet for 14 months. But after showing Ethan the bank statements and explaining everything I'd learned, I found myself pulling it out while he paced our room, processing the revelations about his sister. "We can't just expose her," he said, running his hands through his hair. "Think about Alex." I lifted Oliver's favorite dinosaur t-shirt from the box, the fabric still soft despite countless washes. "Alex is exactly why we have to do something. She's destroying his future to maintain her lies." "Harper," Ethan's voice carried that familiar note of caution. The architect in him, always trying to find the perfect balance. "Maybe we should talk to her first, give her a chance to..." My phone buzzed with a text from Linda. "Vanessa just told us the wonderful news about Alex's early acceptance to Yale. We're so proud." The dinosaur shirt slipped from my fingers. "She's already started," I whispered, showing Ethan the message. "She's building her lie bigger, making it harder for Alex to escape." Before Ethan could respond, another text came through, this time from Greg. She's planning to announce it at the charity gala next week. The one honoring Oliver. I'm sorry. The charity gala. The annual event where Vanessa played the grieving aunt, using my son's memory to boost her social standing. And now she was going to use it to trap her own son in her web of lies. I need some air, I muttered, grabbing my keys. I drove without thinking, ending up at Oliver's favorite park. The swing set where he used to pretend he could fly stood empty in the fading light. As I walked toward it, I spotted a familiar figure on one of the benches, Alex, hunched over his phone. He looked up as I approached. Mom's telling everyone about Yale, he said quietly. Grandmother called to congratulate me. I sat beside him, watching a group of kids play basketball nearby. What are you going to do? What can I do? His laugh was bitter, so unlike his usual self. The application deadline for Berkeley passed last week.
Mom.
She hid the forms I'd filled out. Said she was protecting me from making a mistake. Something inside me snapped. Not the hot, angry break from before, but a cold, clear certainty. What if you could still go? To Berkeley? Alex turned to me, confusion evident on his face.
How?
I thought about Oliver's college fund, still sitting untouched. About how he'd loved music, always dancing to Greg's guitar playing at family gatherings. About how he'd want his money to help someone chase their dreams, not enable more lies. Let me worry about that, I said. But first, I need you to be sure. Really sure. Because what happens next? It's going to change everything. My phone buzzed again, Ethan calling. I ignored it. I'm sure, Alex said firmly. I'm tired of pretending to be who she wants me to be. When I got home, Ethan was waiting with an expression I'd never seen before. Vanessa called, he said. She knows you were talking to Alex. She's threatening to sell Oliver's story to that true crime podcast that's been contacting us. Says if we expose her finances, she'll tell everyone her version of what happened that day at the pool. The world tilted sideways. Nobody in the family talked about that day, about how Vanessa had been watching Oliver while I was at a writing conference, about how she'd been too busy on her phone to notice him slip away. She wouldn't. I breathed, but I knew better. Vanessa would burn everything down to protect her image. Ethan reached for me, but I stepped back. We have to choose, I said.
Right now.
Between protecting Oliver's memory and exposing the truth. Harper.
No.
My voice was steady despite the storm inside. I'm done letting her use our son as a weapon. If she wants to tell her version, let her. But first, she's going to learn what it really means to lose everything. I pulled out my phone and dialed Melissa's number. Remember that evidence about the charity money? It's time. And Melissa? Make it public. Sometimes, protecting what matters means being willing to watch everything else burn. The annual charity gala was Vanessa's moment to shine, but tonight, the crystal chandeliers of the Grand Hotel ballroom cast shadows that felt more like judgment than glamour. I watched her work the room, her designer dress catching the light as she shared her fabricated tale of Alex's Yale acceptance with anyone who would listen. Ethan squeezed my hand under the table. We don't have to do this here. But we did. Because Vanessa had chosen this place, this event dedicated to Oliver's memory, to cement her lies. The irony wasn't lost on me. Melissa's text lit up my phone. Documents are ready. Just say when. I spotted Alex at the bar, nursing a glass of soda, his shoulders tense as another well-wisher congratulated him on Yale. Greg caught my eye from across the room and gave a slight nod. Everything was in place. Linda clinked her glass, calling for attention. Before Vanessa makes her special announcement, I'd like to thank everyone for supporting our family's charity work in memory of our beloved Oliver. My chest tightened. Oliver, who would never get to choose his future, who would never have his dreams stolen by someone else's lies. And now, Linda continued, Vanessa has some wonderful news about Alex's future. I stood up, my chair scraping against the marble floor. Actually, I have something to say first. The room fell silent. Vanessa's perfectly composed smile flickered. Harper, she warned, this isn't the time. It's exactly the time. I pulled out my phone, hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Because while we're all here celebrating Oliver's memory, there's something you should know about last year's charity funds. Charles stepped forward, ever the patriarch trying to maintain order. "Harper, please." $40,000, I said clearly, my voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. That's how much never made it to the Children's Cancer Research Foundation. Would you like to explain where it went, Vanessa? The color drained from her face. You're lying. The bank records say otherwise. I turned to the crowd. The same records that show how she drained Alex's college fund to maintain her lifestyle. The same Alex she's now forcing into Yale against his wishes. Gasps and whispers filled the room. Alex straightened at the bar, something like hope crossing his face. "You want to talk about bank records?" Vanessa's voice turned sharp, desperate. "Let's talk about that day at the pool. About how you left Oliver with me when you knew." When I knew what? The words came out like ice. That you'd be too busy chasing real estate deals to watch him? That you'd lie about checking on him every 15 minutes? Ethan stood beside me, his presence steady. "Vanessa, stop."
No.
She whirled on him. "She's trying to destroy me, and you're letting her. I'm your sister, and Oliver was your nephew." My voice cracked. But that didn't stop you from using his memory to fund your lies. Linda stepped between us, but it was too late. Vanessa lunged forward, grabbing my phone. In the struggle, she knocked over a glass of wine, staining her pristine dress crimson. "Show them the rest," she hissed. "Show them how you've been investigating me, plotting against me. Show them what a perfect, grieving mother you really are." "Mom, stop." Alex's voice cut through the chaos. He stood there looking younger than his 16 years. "Just stop lying, please." The silence that followed was deafening. Vanessa looked around the room at the faces of friends and family now clouded with doubt and disappointment. Her carefully constructed world was crumbling. "You'll regret this," she whispered, but her voice shook. "All of you." She grabbed her purse and stormed out, leaving behind a room full of shocked witnesses and shattered illusions. I felt Ethan's arm around me, steadying me as my legs threatened to give out. We'd done it. We'd exposed the truth. But as I looked at Alex's lost expression, at Linda's tears, at Charles's rigid disappointment, I wondered, at what cost? Greg approached, holding out a folded paper. "Found this in Vanessa's office while she was getting ready. It's from Oliver's last day. Maybe you should read it." My hands trembled as I took it, recognizing my son's messy handwriting. Sometimes victory feels a lot like loss. The morning after the gala, I found Oliver's memorial garden destroyed. His favorite blue hydrangeas torn from the earth, the small stone bench overturned, and the plaque with his name spray-painted black. But what broke me wasn't the destruction. It was the Yale acceptance letter left in the middle of it all. Alex's name crossed out and replaced with Oliver's. I stood there, still in my pajamas, as morning dew soaked through my slippers. Ethan came running out when he heard my scream. "I'll call the police," he said, already dialing. "Don't." My voice sounded hollow, even to me. "We both know who did this." His hand dropped. "Harper. She won." The words tasted like ash. "Is that what you want to hear, Vanessa? You won." I shouted at the empty street, not caring who heard. Ethan tried to pull me inside, but I shrugged him off. I started picking up the scattered plants, my hands trembling. These flowers were the same shade as Oliver's eyes. He used to say they looked like little pieces of sky falling to earth. My phone buzzed, Linda calling again. I'd been ignoring the family's messages since last night, but this time I answered. "Have you seen the news?" Her voice shook. I hadn't. I'd been too focused on the garden. But when I opened my laptop, there it was. Local charity fraud scandal claims unexpected victim. The article detailed how Alex, distraught over the revelations about his mother and college fund, had attempted to run away last night. He'd been found at the bus station, hypothermic and scared. "He's asking for you," Linda said quietly. I closed the laptop. "I can't, Harper. I did this." The words came out choked. I was so focused on justice, on protecting Oliver's memory, that I hurt another child instead. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Greg standing there, looking worse than I felt. Ethan let him in while I stayed rooted to the couch, still clutching my phone. Alex told me everything, Greg said, sitting heavily across from me. About the music school. About how he was afraid to tell anyone what he really wanted. He pulled out a folded paper, Oliver's letter from the gala. Have you read it yet? I shook my head. I couldn't bring myself to open it last night. You should. He stood up, looking older than his 40 years. And Harper? Vanessa's gone. Took everything from our accounts and disappeared. She left a note saying she's going to make sure everyone knows the truth about that day at the pool. My stomach lurched. Greg, Save it. His voice was tired rather than angry. We all failed these kids, didn't we? You, me, Vanessa. We were so caught up in our adult drama that we forgot what really mattered. After he left, I finally opened Oliver's letter with shaking hands. It was dated the morning of the pool incident, written in his messy 8-year-old scrawl. Dear Aunt Vanessa, thank you for watching me today. Mom says you're sad because people don't see how hard you work. But I see you. You're like the moon. Sometimes you hide, but you're always there. Can we have pizza for lunch? Love, Oliver. The paper slipped from my fingers. All this time, I'd been fighting to protect Oliver's memory, but I'd twisted it into something he would have hated. My sweet boy, who saw good in everyone, even in Vanessa's hidden parts. Ethan found me still sitting there an hour later, staring at nothing. The police called, he said softly. They want to talk to us about pressing charges over the garden. I thought about Alex at the bus station, about Oliver's letter, about how revenge had poisoned everything it touched. No, I whispered. No more destruction. Oliver wouldn't want. My voice broke as a wave of nausea hit me. I barely made it to the bathroom in time. As I knelt on the cold tile, Ethan holding my hair back, I remembered something I'd been too stressed to notice. I was late. The universe, it seemed, had a twisted sense of timing. The pregnancy test sat on my bathroom counter like a time bomb when Melissa called. Vanessa's back. She's at Oliver's Memorial Park. Of course she was. Where else would she go to deliver whatever final blow she'd planned? I'm calling the police, Melissa said.
No.
I grabbed my keys. This ends between us. The Memorial Park was 3 blocks from our house, a small playground with Oliver's name on a bronze plaque. Even before I saw her, I heard Vanessa's voice carrying across the empty swings. I knew you'd come. She sat on the bench where I used to read to Oliver, a manila envelope in her lap. Her designer clothes were wrinkled, her perfect makeup gone. Couldn't resist one last confrontation. What do you want, Vanessa? She laughed, a hollow sound. Want? I wanted my son to be successful. I wanted my family's respect. I wanted to stop being the screw-up sister who married a failing musician while perfect Harper got everything. I lost my child, and I lost myself. She stood up, envelope clutched to her chest. Every day, watching you and Ethan, seeing how everyone rallied around her grief while She swallowed hard. Do you know what it's like, being the one who survived that day? The one everyone blamed.
I never blamed.
You didn't have to. It was in every look, every conversation. Poor Harper lost her son, while I was just the careless aunt who checked her phone instead of watching him. The playground felt smaller suddenly, the weight of unspoken words pressing in. A car door slammed nearby, Greg getting out of his truck.
He must have followed me.
I have proof, Vanessa continued, pulling papers from the envelope. Phone records from that day. Texts from you, asking me to watch him even though you knew I had an important client meeting. You are just as responsible. Stop. Greg's voice cut through her words. Just stop, Vanessa. She whirled on him. You don't understand. I need them to know. That you're hurting? I stepped closer. We know. We've always known. But this isn't about Oliver anymore, is it? Everything is about Oliver. She threw the papers, letting them scatter in the wind.
He saw me, really saw me.
That stupid letter. He was the only one who ever. Her voice broke. Greg moved toward her, but she backed away. I can't give you absolution, Vanessa, I said quietly, but I can give you this. I pulled out the pregnancy test from my pocket. I'm carrying your niece or nephew, and I need to know, does this child get an aunt, or does it get another war? The silence stretched between us, broken only by the creaking of empty swings. I found Alex's Berkeley application, Greg said softly. The one you hid. He's got real talent, Vanessa.
Like me.
Is that what scared you? Vanessa's shoulders slumped. For the first time since Oliver's death, I saw her. Really saw her. Not the perfect sister-in-law, not the vengeful antagonist, but someone as broken as I was, just wearing different scars. I don't know how to be anything else, she whispered. Then learn. I touched my stomach. For this baby, for Alex, for Oliver, who saw the good in you even when you couldn't see it yourself. She looked at the scattered papers, at Greg's extended hand, at my still flat belly. Something shifted in her expression, not surrender, exactly, but exhaustion. The kind that comes before healing can begin. Alex wants to study music production, she said finally, her voice small. I know. I stepped closer. Oliver's college fund. It should go to someone who'll use it to create something beautiful. Greg's hand found Vanessa's shoulder. This time, she didn't pull away. I'm so tired, she breathed. Then let's rest, I said, thinking of Oliver's letter, of new life growing inside me, of the long road ahead. We can figure out the rest tomorrow. The sun was setting behind the playground equipment, casting long shadows that looked almost like children playing. Somewhere, I hoped, Oliver was watching. And maybe, just maybe, he was smiling. 6 months later, I stood in Oliver's restored memorial garden, my growing belly visible beneath my sweater. The hydrangeas were blooming again, tiny blue stars against the spring soil. Alex sat cross-legged nearby, strumming Greg's old guitar while recording ideas for his Berkeley application. That sounds beautiful, I said, recognizing hints of the lullaby I used to sing to Oliver. It's for the baby, Alex replied, not looking up. And for Oliver. I thought maybe they could share it. The sound of gravel crunching made us both turn. Vanessa stood at the garden entrance, looking smaller somehow in jeans and a simple sweater. Her therapy sessions had stripped away the designer armor she'd hidden behind for so long. The flowers came back, she said softly. They always do. I touched my stomach as the baby kicked. Nature's stubborn that way. Alex packed up his guitar, kissing my cheek before heading inside. He and Vanessa exchanged careful nods, their relationship still tender, healing slowly like everything else. I found something else, Vanessa said, once he was gone, in my old office files. She pulled out a water-stained envelope. It's from that day. I never opened it. My hands trembled as I took it. Inside was a crayon drawing, stick figures of our whole family, Oliver's last artwork. He'd labeled everyone, Mommy, Daddy, Aunt Nessa, Uncle Greg, Alex. Above us all, he'd drawn a huge moon. Like your letter, I whispered, about you being the moon. Harper, I know, and I did. Some wounds never fully heal, but they can transform into something else. Something that reminds us we survived. The back door opened and Ethan emerged with Linda and Charles. They carried boxes of Oliver's old toys, the ones we'd finally decided to donate to the children's hospital. Each item had been carefully cleaned, photographed, and logged in a memory book we'd made. Ready? Ethan asked, his free hand finding the small of my back. I nodded, watching Vanessa pick up a box without being asked. She'd been doing that lately, showing up, helping, trying to rebuild trust one small action at a time. I have the nursery photos, Linda said, her iPad ready. If you want to see the final design? We gathered around, looking at the room Ethan had architected. He'd incorporated subtle nods to Oliver, constellation wallpaper, a tiny toy dinosaur painted into the mural, a music box that played that same lullaby Alex was working on. It's perfect, I said, meaning it. The baby's lucky, Vanessa murmured, to have all this love waiting. So were we, I replied, meeting her eyes. We just forgot sometimes. Later that night, after everyone left, I sat in the nursery's rocking chair. The moon cast shadows through the window, dancing across the constellation wallpaper. I thought about Oliver's drawing, about how he saw us all connected under the same sky. My phone lit up with a text from Melissa. Alex's Berkeley application is ready. Want to review it tomorrow? Another message followed, this one from Greg. Vanessa asked about family counseling. Together. All of us. And finally, from Vanessa herself. Thank you for letting me be the moon again. I closed my eyes, feeling the baby move. We decided not to learn the gender, but somehow I knew, a girl. A fresh start, but not a replacement. Never that. Your brother drew us a picture. I whispered to my belly. He knew something I forgot, that family isn't about being perfect. It's about being there, even when we're hiding, even when we're scared. The nursery door creaked open. Ethan stood there, holding Oliver's favorite stuffed dinosaur, the one we'd decided to keep. Room for one more? He asked. I patted my stomach, smiling. Always room for one more. He placed the dinosaur on the windowsill, where moonlight made its shadow look almost alive. Together, we watched the stars emerge, each one a tiny light in the darkness, each one a reminder that even after the longest night, morning comes. And sometimes, if we're brave enough to look, we find that the light was there all along, waiting for us to notice.